Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving deep into one of the most exciting aspects of Cyberpunk, the side missions. While the main story might pull you in with its gripping narrative, it's these side missions that really bring Night City to life. In this video, we'll be checking out some of the most memorable side quests and diving into the different types and talking about how the different side missions add depth to the world of Cyberpunk. Ready to get your hands dirty in Night City? Let's jump in. In the quest A Day in the Life, you look at a street vendor who's having trouble with some thugs who are messing with him because his sister, who used to run with them and kind of like go with them, vibe with them, do jobs with them, ended up taking a job with Zeta Tech, like a big corporation that they don't support just because it's a big corporation and they're kind of trying to stick it to the man up against the machine. This quest is kind of interesting because you look at just how easy it is for jealousy and bitterness to take over a Night City, because they feel betrayed just because she kind of moved on from their gang and decided to kind of take a different path and set herself up in a different position. It's kind of interesting just to look at the perspective of just a street vendor or someone who is more of a Daily Joe in Night City and deals with still these issues. Just something simple getting a better job or a simple decision leads to certain people feeling betrayed or kind of that they are owed something that they're not, and looking at that is just interesting of how certain people react to certain things. This also kind of shows on their part just the lack of ability of feeling good about others. Just because they see it a certain way, they're not able to see it from a bigger picture and kind of selfishly don't like it just because it's not something that they agree with. So it just kind of shows their lack of ability to feel good for others or support them when they get in a good position, just because it doesn't really line up with what they want. In the mission Happy Together, you look basically at a ex-cop who's living in his apartment, won't leave, he's depressed, and has a bit of PTSD, and there's a couple cops outside that don't really know what's going on. One dude's just kind of rugged tough, just thinks he's kind of being a wimp or just kind of a loser. The other's a little more compassionate. And this mission's kind of interesting because it kind of displays the importance of being understanding and compassionate, and kind of how your actions have a lot of impact, because this mission can go three ways. Dude can just either off himself, or things can kind of get resolved peacefully where the other cop decides to hear him out and kind of realizes where he's coming from. In Night City, that's kind of going away because people just think Night City's kind of just messed up as it is. They're not really willing to hear someone out. So it's kind of interesting that it shows that. And I guess it also shows some people handle situations differently. The one cop's approach, he wasn't necessarily a bad guy, just kind of understanding. His approach is just kind of to tough it out, but his approach is coming at it with a little bit more thought and emotion. So it kind of shows just how different people can approach different things, and kind of the importance of kind of making sure watch what you say and kind of hearing someone out.
It's not too late.
You know how it goes. Stare too long into the abyss will stare right back at you. Taking a step into it wouldn't be so drastic, considering the shit he's seen in his lifetime.
On a more lighthearted note, the next quest, being Skippy, is an interesting quest just to look at because it's more just laid back, and it kind of happens just time frame of the game. You kind of choose it, you find him, and that kind of starts the quest. But after you get 50 kills, you can kind of choose what mode. You choose what mode you want him on, then after 50 kills, he'll troll you and choose the opposite of what you initially said. So it kind of happens over a period of time, and then you can get him reset if you want to finish the quest line. So homie basically is just rage baiting and trolling the whole time. But if it's your second playthrough or you already know what's going on, you can just set him for what you want, and then it's actually one of the most OP weapons. Something ridiculous like that is interesting. You think of the future and how depressing Night City is. Inventions like this kind of happen as well, which is interesting to look at. Just someone who was playing poker or whatever somehow ended up with this gun, and for some reason this AI is just kind of trolling and kind of going off on his own, which is interesting to look at, especially from an AI standpoint, because when you bring it to Regina, she kind of says that it isn't really working right. He's not supposed to be doing some of this stuff, which is kind of similar to the vending machine. I've heard a couple people say he's from the Blackwall, which I think is probably BS, but it'd be funny. And to be fair, he does kind of go off on his own. it seems like when she resets him, that's kind of what she's hinting at, like he shouldn't be able to do some of the stuff he's doing, and he's definitely just trolling. But it's a kind of interesting look at from a deeper standpoint, if like you're looking at it from like AI and how some of this stuff's happening, and if there's similarities between the Blackwall and Skippy, or if that's kind of what started happening. Moving on to a quest that kind of starts off lighthearted but ends up kind of being more interesting is the quest The Prophet's Song, with Gary, the prophet that just is kind of standing out there outside of Misty's Escoterra, just kind of yapping about what seems to be kind of a bunch of nonsense. You can donate to him a few times after a few of his yap sessions, but then after a while he'll actually give you a mission. He'll tell you that he has some intel on a meeting, something about a chip that could take like big corporations down, and you can go to the meeting, and it turns out he was actually right. What's interesting about this is some of the stuff he says is correct, and then a lot of the stuff is just kind of BS and nonsense, which I think they did a good job just like portraying, because I think that's a lot of that happens a lot with like conspiracies or people that get too deep into conspiracies. Like it seems like some of what they're saying is true because they are doing research, but they're kind of going too deep and they start getting too crazy, and it's just all nonsense. Some of it, like they start getting too deep. But what's interesting is just like how some of the things he's saying is right, especially in Cyberpunk with all this stuff going on. Like he was saying like they're gonna hack your mechanical eyes and watch through them, which makes sense to me, because I mean if it's electronic, that's 100% gonna happen. But then he goes on to talk about like necromancers and just BS. So I do find it interesting that he is getting intel a little bit, because he knew about the meeting and the chip and was able to kind of figure out some information, but then he also just kind of spews stuff. I think that's kind of the interesting part, how some of what he says is true and kind of reading in between the lines. But also it's kind of interesting that he has a little bit of a following, because after you come back, after they kidnap him, he has like a protege. So some people listen to what he says, but additionally, like it's interesting they view him as some sort of a threat because they take him away. So if he has to be some sort of a threat if someone wants him gone. Otherwise, they just leave him be, probably. But what's interesting about this quest is the Prophet's Song is actually like a Queen's song from A Night at the Opera. And then actually there's an option. They reference Monty Python's No One Expects the Spanish Inquisition if you choose that option when Johnny asks. All in all, this quest is just kind of interesting just because it kind of starts off lighthearted, but then you realize he has some sort of intel, and you get to do a mission where he kind of is able to infiltrate this meeting, which is kind of interesting just to see how it gets serious and how some of what he says is true. Quest This Corrosion doesn't have much to it. It's just a follow-up quest if you happen to choose the correct Phantom Liberty ending, or as incorrect, I just mean like the one you have to choose to get this mission. But the reason I find this mission interesting, I guess, is mainly just the rewards afterwards, where you can get like a weapon that's coded by rogue AI or has a rogue AI in it, or the like quick hack cyber deck, which is interesting because it's like the only chance to get this, and I guess lore-wise, it's super OP just because I don't think anybody in Night City has a weapon that's like from the Blackwall, or a cyber deck from that's beyond the Blackwall. So it's interesting, depending on like what DLC ending you choose, you can get like different rewards or different outcomes can happen from it. But in general, it's just kind of interesting to look at the like how the Blackwall can also be used in different ways. Like instead of saving V, it can also be used in weapons and things of that nature. So it also shows like this is just something that Watch is trying to stop, but it's nothing they can really do about it. Eventually, rogue AIs will break free from the Blackwall. So it's interesting to look at some of the ways that like these AIs can get put to use. Alright, the last class we'll be discussing today is the Raymond Chancellor Evening, which is a quest where you kind of help out the bartender, make sure his wife's not cheating on him. This quest is kind of interesting. You don't really get anything crazy. It's more just kind of just given like him and his like character backstory, and it's kind of interesting just because like his character isn't really a big one. It's like he's an important character, but he kind of floats in the background. He's not super important. He's noticed, but not to a high degree. So it's kind of interesting kind of looking into his personal story, because up until that point, there's no real details given on it that much. And it's interesting because the whole thing's kind of a misunderstanding, but it's a funny quest just because Johnny roasts you the whole time. And actually, it ends up coming back later, because you can actually meet her at the airport. You walk up to her which is interesting. You can talk to her a bit, ask her how things are going, and she kind of plays it off. But it's kind of cool how they add all those little small details and kind of connect it together, which kind of makes this quest tie back to that moment when you play the DLC. And actually the song is named after the British artist Robin Hitchcock. They use the name from that song in this quest, which is also kind of interesting. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the side missions of Cyberpunk. Whether it's the hidden gems, the emotional gut punches, or the choices that leave a lasting impact, these side quests prove that Night City is more than just neon and chaos. It's full of stories worth experiencing. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of gaming. Let me know in the comments which side mission stood out to you the most, or if there's another game you'd like me to explore next. Until next time, at ease.